Season 4 Part 1 was released just yesterday, and boy was it worth the wait. So much happened in a shorter runtime than usual. I thought I'd take a look at the first part of this season, answer some questions on the show, and give my thoughts and opinion. So, let's jump in. Here is a review of Ozark Season 4 Part 1. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. I was a huge fan of this season of the show. The finale concluded in a way that resolved things in one sense, but also opened the door for many different things to arise. This season picked up directly at the end of Season 3, where we saw Helen being killed right in front of the birds. The main theme of this season was escape. We see Omar Navarro want out of his lifestyle, the birds want to return to their old life in Chicago, and Ruth wants to escape the Ozark too. That was the common theme and motive amongst all of the main cast members in this season. I thought it was a good topic and appropriate to theme the final season around that, due to the fact that as the show is coming to a close, it feels like a natural resolution. We see for the majority of the season the relationship between Omar Navarro and the birds being amicable, and essentially scratching each other's backs to ultimately get what they want: freedom. Navarro wants to be able to move between the US and Mexico as freely as possible, and Marty is doing his best to negotiate a deal with the FBI to make that happen. In this season, we were introduced to Harvey, who I thought was an extremely great character to throw into the mix and provide an element of tension and uncertainty throughout the season. We see that he's not like his uncle Omar, and he acts recklessly, with his answer to everything being just to shoot. We saw this right up until his final moments on screen in the season. There were points where I thought that Omar was going to kill him, or they were at least going to fight, but they didn't, which I thought was a shame. I would have loved to have seen that family rivalry come to fruition and ultimately see Navarro winning against him. I think that will happen in the new season now that Navarro has double-crossed Harvey, but I'm undecided on who I think will win. Ruth was embarking on her own journey with Darlene this season, which I thought was a good arc to have. We saw her set up her own laundering business and recruit Jonah, who frustrated me more than ever because he didn't think before he spoke, no matter what the consequences were. Although Ruth and the birds are not on the same team anymore, we see the compassion and understanding that Marty has for Ruth, and that deep down he does care for her, almost like a daughter, and I would love that whenever it would appear on screen. Ruth was just as loudmouthed and in your face as usual, but I think she's hands down the best performer in that show. She delivers lines and emotions so well, and I genuinely believe what I'm watching. The anger, passion, and devastation that we saw from her in the final moments of the season were heartbreaking and extremely powerful to watch. She delivered them so beautifully, and you really got what she was feeling. The decision of cutting the audio and just having silence when she let out a harrowing scream allowed you to imagine just how painful it was for her seeing Wyatt, and it allowed us to understand everything that she was feeling in that specific moment. We saw Darlene not really have that much influence over anybody this season. This is most probably the weakest we've seen her in the entire show. Don't get me wrong, she was petrifying, and did come across as intimidating, but it felt like she didn't hold the power and authority that she once had. Wyatt and Darlene's weird relationship was something that continued throughout the season, despite Wyatt being against all of the murders that she was committing. We saw them get married, but ultimately Darlene got shot by Harvey due to not closing down her farm after being warned by the cartel in the past. And poor Wyatt was dragged into it. It was such a shame seeing him get shot because he was probably the most innocent person out of anybody in the show. I just wished he had have walked away when he had the chance. I was in shock when that moment happened, but I kind of had a feeling it was never going to end well for him. I thought the twist in the final episode of the show was great. I didn't expect it at all. After seeing Navarro meeting with the FBI and agreeing a deal that would essentially make him double-cross his nephew and his cartel to give him the freedom that he so desires was big enough. But as he was about to get on a flight back to Mexico, we saw Agent Miller walk up to him after the arrest, and she double-crossed everyone and did the arrest herself, claiming it as an individual victory, and being the person who arrested the leader of the organization. From that moment on, it threw everything into chaos, and it really allowed the final half of the episode to go up a gear. and you could sense the sheer panic that the birds had due to them not wanting him to think that it was them. When Harvey went on the rampage to kill Marty after thinking exactly that, deep down I didn't believe that he would do it, just purely down to the fact that there's another season of the show coming, so although it was high on Harvey's list of things he wants to do, I knew Marty would be fine. I thought the ending of the season really allowed the show to put itself in a great position to create an epic final part to the season, which embodies everything that the show has built over the 4 years. We're going to have Ruth going on a mission to track down Harvey, and I believe will end up being killed herself. I think the show knows that killing Ruth is probably the most appropriate way for her arc to end, and it will pull on all of our heartstrings because although she's loud, aggressive and rude, we love her. She acts on emotions and doesn't necessarily always think before she acts, and I think that will be the downfall of her in this final part, especially when coming up against Harvey, who doesn't think or care about anything. In this season, we saw the story of Wendy's brother being killed being developed further, and it looks as though that is now closed off with the identification of a body that looked like his. But we've also got the sheriff who is still down as missing, and I think with that being explored, it will keep the birds as top suspects in the next season. All of these little side arcs and things that have happened I believe will ultimately tie into a grand finale in the final part. The private investigator was a bit of a side character this season, but I think he will have more of a larger role to play in the final part, as we saw him on the phone to Agent Miller in the final 20 minutes, so that's something that's definitely going to be explored in the next part. I thought the character performances in this season were strong. Navarro was great, he really got across the aggressive gang leader vibe whilst remaining totally calm at all points. I think it's always more threatening and shows authority when a leader is calm and collected, and that's exactly what he was. The birds were okay, however, as mentioned, Jonah frustrated me a lot. Charlotte wasn't actually in it that much. Wendy was a character that I don't really like that much, but the character development was well executed, and Marty was just as good as ever. Harvey I thought was fantastic and provided something that the previous seasons haven't had before, but Ruth for me was the utter standout. She was a phenomenal character. Overall, I think that this season was the best that we've been given. We saw lots of action, emotional moments, development of the story, twists, and all for the season to conclude at a point where there's a lot to pick up from. I don't know what exactly Season 4 Part 2 holds, but I know it's going to be one hell of a ride, and I can't wait to be the passenger. What did you think of Season 4 Part 1? Did you enjoy it? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.